If your team is fine but exhausted, it's usually not a motivation problem, it's pressure. And the fastest way to lead through that pressure is to name what kind of pressure you and your team are actually dealing with. Because how you fix it, it's gonna depend on the type. I'm Krista Wilson, and I've spent 17 years helping organizations build psychologically safe, trust-rich teams that can not only withstand the hard stuff, the pressure, but emerge thriving on the other side. In this video, I'm going to give you 3 simple categories of pressure that you can use as a sort of diagnostic for your team. And as you listen, you'll be able to know which one is pushing up against your team right now and what to focus on next. Most teams don't have just one kind of pressure. They usually have a primary kind of pressure, and then everything else gets worse because of that one, and because it's not being managed. So I'm going to share with you 3 categories of pressures. I'll give you examples and a diagnostic question for each. Are you ready? The first category of pressure that I often see in teams is what I call a load pressure. Load pressure is when the weight of the work is simply just too heavy for people to carry. And that could be because the actual amount, the volume of the workload. It could be the pace that is just moving at such a fast clip that it's just impossible to be able to do it and then also maintain your sense of well-being. And it also looks like a sense of constant demand. It's always one thing after the other being pushed on folks. Now, if you open your ear and you listen, here's what it often sounds like. People might say, "We can't catch up," or, "Oh, everything is urgent." By the way, everything's not urgent. You might hear things like, "We're working so hard and we're still behind." And here's what it looks like. There's often too many projects in motion at the same time. There's chronic understaffing. So there's just not enough people to do all the work that's got to get done. Or it can look like uneven workload distribution, where it looks like 1 or 2 of your high performers, your hyperachievers even, they're doing way more than their percent of the labor, and they're carrying both their load and the load of multiple people on their team. It also looks like those moments where folks cannot take time off. And this is something that I often talk with leaders about and HR leads. They'll say, people just are not taking their time. We have an ample PTO allocation. People just aren't taking their time. And then when we have facilitated employee listening sessions, we hear things like, "I don't take my vacation time because there is so much work that the stress of what's gonna wait for me on the other side of that trip, it ain't worth going on vacation." So that stress is why people just can't take time off, or they feel they can't take time off without the work falling behind or without being able to manage the stress of what's going to happen when they come back. We also know that this looks like Slack and email. The checking of it starts to creep into our nights and to our weekends, when that should not be work time. That's your personal time, but work is creeping into it. So here's your diagnostic question. If you paused new work for 2 weeks or even a month, would your team be able to catch up, and would they be able to recover? Or would they still be drowning under that workload? If you said that folks would still be drowning, then that means that the pressure of work and the workload isn't coming from the team's lack of skill or their lack of commitment or motivation issues or even their effort. It's coming down to the truth that there's just too much for your people to do. And that becomes a structural capacity issue that needs a resolution. So the next category of pressure I want to talk about is clarity pressure. Now, clarity pressure is when the stress is coming from not knowing what matters most, or who owns what, or how decisions get made. And what it sounds like are things like, "Wait, who's responsible for that?" Or you might hear things like, "I did not know I was responsible for that." You might hear, "I thought that was the priority, not that." We keep redoing the same thing over and over again. And here's what it looks like. There's not a clearly articulated, and I don't mean just verbally, I mean even documented, vision or a goal that is guiding the activities and the choices and even the time choices and commitments and prioritization on your team. It can look like decision delays. Decision wasn't made. Now it was made, and now there's last minute scrambling because we've lost all that time during indecision. That sound familiar? Now, it also looks like there could be conflicting priorities from multiple leaders. So I remember a contract that we had with an organization about 2 years ago. The chief operations officer had identified some goals and priorities for this particular department. And then the department head had identified some priorities that they had identified looking at their own work plan. and communicated that to their team. So the team received priorities from the COO and received priorities from the department head and the marketing team. People were confused, right? There were conflicting priorities from multiple leaders. It can also look like roles or role descriptions or their functions. They shift consistently without getting recalibrated. And so people from maybe one quarter to the next aren't fully sure what they're responsible for achieving. And it can also look like that there's constant rework because what was defined as good keeps changing. So, okay, just do it like this and we're good. Hey, you know what? Actually, we got to have it look like this. Hey, actually, we got to add this component to it. So it's constantly changing. And by the end of the final deliverable, it's actually been 5 different things. It's very frustrating, but it's also so common, this concept of constant rework. So here's a diagnostic question for you. Is your team stressed? Are they feeling tension or pressure because of the work that they're being asked to do? Or are they feeling stressed because they're being asked to spend their time and their energy, maybe half their time or their energy, figuring out what the work even is? If it's the second one, then the pressure that your team is under is what I call that clarity pressure category. Okay, so here's the third category I want to share with you. And this one's a big category. It's a tricky category as well because a lot of organizations have defunded and deprioritized a lot of the coaching and training that was helping to build the muscle of team members to help stave off this pressure. I call this pressure relational pressure. So relational pressure is when the work that is happening inside of the tension, the friction starts to look like there's low trust, there's conflict avoidance, there's unmanaged power dynamics or unrecognized power dynamics, and even psychological safety or the lack thereof. And here's what it might start to sound like. Oh, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells around this person or that division. People might say, we don't talk about the real stuff. People are smiling, but they're checked out. I don't know what else or how else to say it to her. Something is just not clicking. And here's what it starts to look like. Conflict, even if you don't use that word, could be tension, miscommunication, disrespect, just that not feeling good, energy exchange between people, disagreements, all of that never gets acknowledged or repaired. It can look like side conversations and gossip and triangulation, replacing honest feedback and accountability conversations. It can also look like people more focused on the optics than telling the truth. So we've worked with organizations that say, our team is fine. We've got the same, hiccup that all teams have. And then when I start doing interviews or focus groups or do a survey, we find out that there's some real deep relationship fissures on the team that if they're not repaired, the team will never be able to perform in the way that they need to. It can also look like some people feel safer on teams to speak up, to share their ideas, to challenge proposals than others do. And there's a whole lot of reasons why some people might feel safer than others. So here's a diagnostic question for you on this one. Are people on your team spending most of their energy doing the work, or are they spending a lot of energy managing each other? The emotions of other people, fear of other people, just the emotional and psychological energy of interpersonal dynamics. If you find that people are managing a lot of their time, spending a lot of their time on these relationship dynamics that just don't feel good and aren't productive, you've got a relational pressure issue. So here's what I want you to remember. You don't have to solve every kind of pressure in the same way, right? But load pressure needs us to examine our capacity choices. If we have a clarity pressure issue, we've got to examine roles and decision design. Like, how are we making decisions? How are we deciding what roles in charge of what and communicating that across the team? And if you're having relational pressure, you've got to dial up your investments on trust building and repair building, on creating healthy conflict norms, deepening the actual relationships with folks who are on a team. When you as a leader are better able to diagnose pressure, you'll be better able to manage it. When leaders misdiagnose pressure, they start to overcorrect in the wrong direction, throwing strategy and resources and time at the wrong thing. Meanwhile, the team stays under pressure, they stay tired, they stay ineffective, and slowly begin to deteriorate their well-being and their energy and even their engagement. So tell me this in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Of these three categories, which pressure is most true for you or your team right now? Comment either load, clarity, or relationship. And if you want, you can tell me what it kind of looks like and I'll offer you some tips or a resource, I promise. So here's what I want you to think about and I want you to remember. When we intentionally focus on building great culture and high-performing team and teams that are able to withstand pressure and thrive on the other side of it, it requires us to develop both the people skills and redesign our system. And that's how we begin to make teams, what we call over here, pressure proof. Now, if you're curious what can make a company and a team culture great, I want to invite you to download my free guide, the Build a Great Company Culture Guide. I share 12 essential elements of great culture. You definitely want to check that out. If you take away one thing from this video, here's what I want you to take away. That pressure is a normal thing that teams will experience. And so it's not any kind of evidence that your team is failing or that you as a leader are failing. Instead, it's a signal that your system and your culture needs a little bit of support. And naming that and identifying the source and the kind of pressure is your first big, bold act of leadership to make a pressure-proof team. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment if you have some thoughts to share.